Hi, Amy Harrison here from Floriculture. I'm sitting outside under the cover in my beautiful deck because it's been raining non-stop and I thought it just was really lovely to sit out here. So I've been asked for a special request to create a buttonhole from a friend of mine. So I thought I would do that for everybody so you can learn how to create your own buttonhole on any given day, whether it's rainy or just cloudy. If it's sunny, go outside and enjoy the weather. So my materials I have today are actually all preserved. So they're just things that I had lying around the house. I didn't go out anywhere specific to buy anything. So I have this beautiful gum nut that'll be my focal flower. I have very soft and silky bunny tails. So these I actually did purchase from the flower markets probably almost a month ago for a separate workshop for wreath making, but I had a couple left over, so I thought they'd be lovely in this. I've got some tea tree, which is spelled capital T dash tree. Again, this is just dried, been dried in my house for many years probably. I have some dried Banksia leaves. So with buttonholes I like to use sort of 3 and try and have different sizes if you can. So a larger for the back, a slightly smaller one for the side, and then one for the front that's going to sort of dip out a little bit like a tongue. So that's my 3. I've got some twine that I'll be wrapping the stems with afterwards. Got my red and white scissors, of course. My eco-friendly Parafilm. Now I don't have brown, but brown could be an option if you're working with sort of brownish, beigeish colours. I've got my wires. So I've just laid out 4 wires. I've got a 28 gauge, which is the lightest wire, which will be possibly suitable for my bunny tails, my tea tree, and maybe a couple of my leaves. Then I've got my 24, so next size up for slightly heavier flowers and leaves. Then I've got my, 28, 26, this is the 24. So you'll sort of feel when you get them one day yourself that they have slightly different thickness. And then my 22, which will be suitable for my heavier flower, which is the focal flower, which is the gum nut. Okay, to start off, now most things are pre-cut because they've been in little dishes in my house. But ideally, the length should be no more than 2 fingers. So if you're holding it from where the flowers or leaves end and just place your finger there, 2 fingers will be appropriate enough. You don't want things too long, taking anything away from the other flowers. So my transitional flower today is my tea tree. So that's the flower that sort of gives a bit of texture and pizzazz and sort of connects the dots. My line flowers, which are my bunny tails, are a flower that sort of takes you right up and down. And the focal, of course, which pulls you in to start with, is the gum nut. So I'm going to start with the gum nut. So I'm just going to cut a small bit of wire from my long length, and I'm just going to place it as high up as I can at a right angle to my stem. Then I'm going to bring down the 2 wires. So you have 1 wire short, 1 wire long. Use the long wire and really pull tightly, firmly around that stem. So you sort of get this sort of hairpin style wiring. So that's not going anywhere. You can test the buoyancy or the bounce with each flower. If it's got a bit of movement, great. If it falls down like this, the wire's too thin. So you need a heavier gauge wire. So moving on to my transitional. Now I'm going to go, I think, with something not as light as the 28, but I'm going to go the 26 because there's a bit of weight. It's not a lot, but there's a bit. So again, just pick off any leaves or anything that's sitting down the bottom of the stem. And once again, right angle to my stem, bring down the 2 lengths, have 1 longer that you're going to wrap around. So you'll end up with something like that. So that's got a nice bit of bounce as well. Now, my bunny tails, and you can do this, I just felt like it needed 2 rather than 1 because they're so fine and thin. So you can actually wire those 2 together. And I think I'm going to use the 26 once again. So again, right angle, 2 wires to sit on each side of the stem. I don't know what way is better to see. And then you're wrapping the wire So it also wraps around the two stems. So you might get a little loop like that. That's perfectly fine. That's going to be covered with your parafilm anyway. Let me see what's going on here. One more loop. There we go. So you can test, there's a little bit of bounce, which is great. That's what I'm looking for. Now my leaves, they're fairly thin and fairly light. So I may not even use the 20, oh look, I'll try 28 on the lightest leaf. So you're going to turn it around. So you're looking at the spine, and then you're going to stab the wire on either side of the spine like this. And again, look for that right angle to the rest of the spine of the leaf. Bring down, oops, a little bit longer, bring down the two wires and then wrap around. So you need just a little bit of stem to be able to wrap around, not much. So that's good, that's got some nice movement. But I think for this big one I'm going to need the 26. So I'll use my little leaf with the 28 gauge again. Oh, the sun's starting to come out. Yay, it's been raining all day. So sometimes hard to find things to do with a toddler when it's raining. She's sleeping. Yay. So again, that's what it's looking like. So a little bit of bounce, great. And the last one, my slightly bigger leaf, I think the 28 gauge will be too thin. So I'm going to go the 26, poke it in the back, right angle, and then bring down those two wires. So that's great. That's a little bit stiffer, but that's fine because it's going to be your backing leaf. Now we need to parafilm. Now you can put your parafilm down your top if you like. That's where I like to keep it. Nice and warm down there, and the parafilm works best when it's flexible. Okay, so to start off, pick a leaf or a flower, and you're just going to have to place it over the top as high up as you can go. And then with your left hand, you're going to sort of stretch and pull with your right. Now sometimes it's hard to get going, but once the parafilm starts sticking to each other, it's pretty easy just to pinch and twist with your left and pull down with your right. Now you don't need to go all the way to the bottom. Midway or a little bit beyond is fine, just as long as it's a nice neat finish. So do that with all your leaves. So you're pinching and twisting with one hand and pulling and stretching with your other. Oh, how lovely. So nice when the sun finally comes out. The garden's glistening. So I'll have to spend some time in the garden this afternoon. Now your bunny tails, we've wired them together, so that means you can bind them together. And same thing, you've just got to completely cover that top of that wire and then work your way down. Okay, and you can just rip the parafilm off. You don't need scissors to cut the parafilm each time. Just rip it off. Now I like to use the eco-friendly parafilm because it is eco-friendly, but also it has a different texture that I find matches the flowers a bit better. I know this colour doesn't completely match, but that's all going to be hidden with your twine and with other flowers anyway. Okay, and your gum nut, wrap it around. So the parafilm is essential if you're working with fresh flowers because it's going to lock in that little bit of moisture that's still left in the stem, and it'll keep your buttonhole looking fresher for longer. So if you don't do it this way, your flowers are going to dry out. So I know that there's a few Instagram people out there that seem to just wrap one little section of the buttonhole and the stems are left exposed. I can't imagine that buttonhole lasts them more than a couple of hours, and a wedding or an event can be a whole day thing. So you don't want droopy flowers in your photos, it just looks a bit sad. So take it from me, do things right, do things well, and you'll get a much better result, much better outcome. Okay, so everything is now wired and parafilmed, and that's all the flowers we need. It's a very simple design. So you're going to start with your largest leaf first and with your line flowers or your tallest flowers. So you can have a little bit of a play or a plan of attack as how this is going to look. Essentially you want each flower that you place to cover the flower that you placed before, but you also want every flower to have its time in the light, in the spotlight. So my little rule of thumb is that the leaf should never really be higher than the flower. So at this stage, my flower is a little higher than the leaf. So my line flower is connecting with my tallest leaf, and I'm just going to put a little bit of parafilm just to stick it in that spot. Although you'll find after a while your hands get very sticky and you don't even need parafilm at all. So one flower, one leaf. My next flower is going to be my transitional flower. So I'm working my way down like a little ladder and finishing off with my focal. The focal, being the largest flower, is going to cover a lot of your workmanship. So another focal flower could be a beautiful rose, a carnation, anything that's a nice feature and that's preferably long lasting. So I want this flower just to kick out a little bit, because as I place the leaf that's backing that flower, it's going to just create a little bit of depth. So some shapes you're looking for are triangles in floristry. Triangles, some dimensions are at 853. So that's sort of like a golden rule in floristry. It means that your length could be 8, your next flower length could be 5, and your last flower length could be 3. So that's just indicating that you've got things at different spots, and it's sort of creating a scalene triangle where no sides are equal. It's less obvious than equilateral triangle where all sides are equal. Now I know that I've got one little flower that's sort of kicking off there to the side. I'll see how I feel about that one. I might just cut that one off in the end, but it's quite cute, so I might leave it on. Once you cut obviously something off, it's not going to grow back, so just be careful about your decisions. What do they say? Measure twice, cut once. Well, I kind of cut twice and measure twice. So I know that flowers won't grow after they've been cut. They might grow a little bit, but not in this circumstance. So this is what we're looking at now. My last flower, my beautiful big gum nut. Now it's sitting on a little bit of an angle. I think I want it to jut out rather than sit backwards. Okay, a bit of parafilm because it is quite a heavy flower and I don't want it to move around once I determine its spot. Those other things tend to move around a little bit. Okay, so we've got that now, looking pretty. And last but not least, our finishing leaf, which I call the tongue leaf. So you're actually going to place it backwards. I know, but we're going to do more. We're going to place it backwards, and then with our wire, we're going to pull it down a little bit like a, that's why I say it looks like a tongue. And tuck it underneath. So it hides a lot of our mechanics. So I'll just bind this and then I can show you. Actually, it's very hard to show you, but sort of like that. Now, because my wires are green, they're a little bit obvious, so I'm just pulling it down, that leaf, a little bit more than I would normally, so I don't see that green wire. Now, fresh leaves may need a bit more support than these dried leaves. These dried leaves have a bit of give, so you can manipulate them a bit better, I find, than fresh leaves. So fresh leaves, you're just working better with your wires. You might wire a little bit further up the leaf so you can fold it over a bit more. And if you're working with green leaves, then you're not going to see the green wire anyway. So I've got that little tongue poking out, and it is doing a pretty good job of hiding what's underneath. Now I'm ready to cut. Now I tend to go about 3 fingers from the very top of my buttonhole. So what you're looking for, but I may cut again, what you're looking for is 2/3 of your content to 1/3 of your stem. So again, it's another golden rule of floristry. So you can measure with your wonderful measuring hands that you've got 3 parts to this. Then you know that you've got 1/3, 2/3, and the top is 3/3. So I'm fine with that. I don't need to cut again. But what I want to do is just parafilm the very bottom again, so I've got no wires protruding. Now last but not least is to put your twine or ribbon on. So twine, I think, just works really well with what we've got here. So you're going to start off to ribbon. This is any ribbon technique. I do roughly the same. So I always leave a little bit of a tail so I've got something to tie on to afterwards. I run the twine at the back all the way down, and then I guide it back up. So I often just put my little pinky finger there to hold it in place, and then I start to wrap very quickly around the stem, hoping that I've got enough twine, and I don't. Oh. So that's all right. I could cut more or just cut corners. So rule of thumb, cut yourself the right amount of twine to start off with. Okay, let's see. Third time's a charm. Can I make it? It's the most exciting thing that's happened all day. Pressure's on. Oh. And I'm just slightly short. Let's see. I actually have a bit of twine here. Got to get it right. All right, let's try this twine instead. So this is a guinea pig buttonhole that I did earlier. All right, there we go. Don't want to waste anything, but we want it to finish properly. So cut yourself more twine than what you think, just in case, because you can always use leftovers for other things. So once again, the tail, go long, as in go the length of your stem, place a little pinky finger there, and then work your way back up. Now you can do this with a glue gun, if you find it all just a bit too fiddly with pinky fingers. You can use a glue gun or cold glue, in which you would then run a bit of glue down the back of the stem, and then same sort of technique, just work your way back up with the twine. But you know, I don't find it absolutely necessary to use glue at this stage. So you cut the remainder. Once you've reached the top and you've reached the other tail, you just need to tie one knot. And you could do, if you wanted to, oh, the wind's coming now, a very small little bow. I mean, it's really for a guy, but it's all right. Guys like bows, don't they? I think. So the female version of this is called a corsage, and it's a little bit more elaborate. Of course, if anyone would like to see that, I'm happy to do a demonstration of that as well. So you've got a little bow at the back now. You can cut the remainder of your twine, and you can put your pin. So that's pretty much finished. Now the pin, I always say to put it at an angle, so it helps it from flopping from left to right. So I'll just show you first, and then I've actually got a jacket here that I was wearing before, but it was getting too warm. There we go. So it's actually going to sit somewhere like that. But on a jacket, let me just put this on. 2 seconds so I won't boil. It's a very nice jacket. I don't really wear it very much, so. Okay. So generally speaking, it goes on the left-hand side, where you often see the little hole for the on the lapel for the buttonhole. So take the pin off, get it into position, and then just grab a little bit of material, place it back into the stem of the buttonhole. Again, keep it on the angle. Now there's a lot of wires in there, so you might just have to sort of dodge around. There we go. And when you feel it pop out the other side, place it back into your jacket, and then you've got a gorgeous little buttonhole. That should really curl over a bit more, just to cover that area. Gorgeous little sustainable, forever wearing buttonhole. So I hope you enjoyed that. I look forward to any comments and queries, and if there's anything you'd like me to demonstrate for you to create at home, please let me know. And thanks for joining me. Bye.